Hello, I'm Michael Strogis. Welcome to my studio in Hannover.
Michael Strogis made his name as a portrait painter. His works have appeared in numerous exhibitions throughout Germany. He's also painted for all sorts of good causes, portraying various celebrities and auctioning the paintings for charity. Along with portraiture, he produces a steady stream of what he calls live paintings. While his portraits are generally realistic, the live paintings turn reality into paint. Frequently, he uses a montage technique, incorporating diverse materials in his compositions. It followed that the next step was to use packaging materials in his works. Initially, this was meant as a parody of the established art business, where one mostly works with noble materials: clay, bronze, marble, stainless steel, even gold. Strogis simply went to the other extreme. His materials were rubbish, whatever our affluent society throws away. Thus, in his works, he repeatedly juxtaposes fashion models, icons of the seductive allure of the powerful beauty industry, with the price we pay for this, an ever-growing mass of packaging waste.
It was never my intention to demonize plastic, but much more to portray together what belongs together. It's not just one thing or the other. Where do we stand in all this? And what's the relationship between packaging and content? Or is packaging already for us the actual content?
In the course of time, however, he came to like this material more and more. He noticed how diverse plastic could be, and how it responded so variously to being worked. He began to concern himself more closely with plastic as a medium in its own right. Artificial material became art material. Of course, the themes of beauty and perfecting oneself in his work raise the question of transience, of impermanence.
Simply as a painter who's well past the halfway point in life and works with young models, this issue is bound to rise. And then the question of beauty is naturally closely bound up with the question of aging. And in fact, the beauty industry works on the promise that you can suspend the aging process.
But aging is nothing more or less than the natural process of changing and fading. And so, in his montages, plants appear time and again. Not flowers, which actually would be more in keeping with conventional portrayals of models, but rather the humble and unspectacular plants like ivy or wilted leaves. Ivy is tough. It overruns everything: soil, living organisms, concrete. Nature will recapture the habitat that's been shaped by humans if you give her the chance. The possible combinations of plastic waste and nature began to fascinate him. For the plantings, he mainly used wild herbs, which proved increasingly popular as a source of food for insects. Gradually, the idea evolved of installing such objects on paved surfaces. They should fulfill three criteria. Firstly, the artistic aesthetic aspect. Secondly, rational upcycling of non-reusable plastic waste. And thirdly, creating insect habitats on sites that, because of their construction, had been withdrawn from nature. Working with plastic, something which has become a completely normal medium for him, revealed how much science and research is invested in this material. Along with the artistic effect of his works, Strogies has set himself the task of examining and researching precisely this phenomenon in comparison with scientists. In this, he found a supporter in Professor Dr. Gillian Gerke of Magdeburg-Stendal Universities, who offered herself as consultant on his projects. She, too, as part of her teaching responsibilities, was researching the effects of climate and other environmental factors on various types of plastics. Via a television program, Strogies came across the topic of algae. He did some online research and found the algae collection curated by Professor Thomas Friedel at Göttingen University. An email to Professor Friedel was answered immediately, and they quickly formed a working partnership.
My interest as an artist is the combination of two very different medias. On the one hand, you have plastic as a result of all of scientific knowledge. On the other hand, you have algae as an organism that stands quite in the beginning of the development of life. It will be a very interesting kind of coexisting relationship.
In actual fact, there are plenty of conjectures in this field about which processes could happen between algae and plastic, but few actual investigations. Everyone knows about the problems in the sea, where algae attaches itself to degenerating plastic, which marine animals then mistake for food, with terrible consequences. What hasn't yet been investigated is what really happens between algae and plastic in the long term. In the first phase, Professor Friedel provided the artist with an algae culture. The idea is to let algae in water flow over columns, sculptures made of plastic waste. The plastic will be coated so that the waterborne algae can attach itself to the surface. The water provides all necessary nutrients. The algae layer on the plastic protects it from too strong UV penetration. The algae can also fix any microplastics that arise mechanically. As this is a closed system, samples can be taken at any time to find out exactly what is happening between the algae and the plastic. So Strogies' project for a kind of plastic biotope should be built as follows. First, a water tank will be built on a sealed concrete or paved area to retain water from extreme rainfall and reduce the immediate runoff. The water is then fed through a system of perforated hoses directly to the plants that need it, rather than running unused over the sealed area and disappearing into the storm drain. On the edge of the reservoir, its banks, so to speak, plastic columns in the shape of trees will be set up, planted with insect-friendly flowers. Holes in the columns will provide shelter to diverse insects and nesting places for songbirds and other small animals. Within the basin, a second tank will be installed, with a solar-powered pump that drives water containing algae from the basin to the top of the columns, where it flows down over their plastic waste surface. This system is completely separate from the other water basin. The entire installation is left entirely to itself, without outside intervention. Successive phases will be photographed and the life that appears on the installation documented. Regular samples will be taken to examine the processes between algae and plastic. Such a project serves several aims. Rainwater retention on sealed surfaces such as car parks or roofs. Upcycling hitherto hard to recycle plastic waste instead of incineration. Creating desperately needed habitats and food sources for insects and other small animals. Fixing fine dust and particulates in the air by running water together with algae. Scientific research into the processes between algae and plastics. As the structures are built of found materials, that is, material costs are minimal, they would be ideal for school projects. Such an installation could be built on any school playground by the pupils themselves with adult support. Using solar-powered pumps means there would be no or very low running costs. So, this would be an ideal way of communicating the themes of plastic as artistic construction material and natural processes.
For me, the plastic trees are like the trees of knowledge. We lost paradise, but if we are really clever, we will use our knowledge to find back to it. And we have the opportunity.